Hello all, it's James Johnson, aka Sulfurblade, and it's that time of the week for Star Trek Discovery. And we're going to be going over a recap of Star Trek Discovery, Season 2, Episode 11. What was it called? Perpetual Affinity. Okay, so we start off basically with Burnham in hyper emotional state. She died. I can't just sit here. Let me go down to the planet. I have to see my mom. Oh my god, my mom died. Let me go. I demand to go down to the planet. Please, let me go. The usual Burnham, I have to have my way or else I'm gonna throw a fit. And there were quite a few opportunities for Burnham to throw a fit this episode. Of episodes where Burnham throws fits, this has a very large number of them in this episode. So if you are not a fan of Burnham throwing fits, then this episode might not be one of your favorites. I mean, yeah, she's alive. How can I be patient and just sit here while my mom is down there on the planet who I haven't seen? Blah 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 blah. Anyway, so Pike has given her homework, hands her her mother's mission logs, and tell her to go through them. Some busy work to take Miss Spoiled Brat's attention off of the fact that she's got to go down to the planet to see her mother. Well, now we jump scenes and we go to see Control basically taking over Captain Leeland. And during this exchange, we talk about how easy it was for Control to become a Vulcan. That the Vulcan personality suited Control, and we talk about how difficult it was for some of the other personalities. And one of them that was alluded to was Commander Saru, which, huh? What do you mean, Commander Saru? When did Control take control of Commander Saru? So there's been a little bit of mystery thrown in to this particular episode, in that Control has given us, the viewers, some information that may or may not make a whole lot of sense, and it leaves us wondering if one of our favorite characters is a good guy or a bad guy. Then we go to the bridge of the Enterprise, where we get to see another stupid Tilly moment. In fact, it was one of the few moments in which we saw Tilly on the screen, and in general, we don't see much of the bridge crew in this episode at all. They were even less relevant in this episode than they have been in others. But Tilly basically gets her opportunities to say some stupid stuff right away in the beginning of this episode, and you just want to smack your face with a facepalm every time Tilly opens her mouth. And it seems that it's some sort of custom or tradition to make sure that a scene like that happens in every episode of Star Trek Discovery, because, we must be taught to despise Ensign Tilly because she's an idiot. And then we get introduced to the whole gravitational problem. Evidently, with great time travel comes great gravitational instability, and there's no way they're going to be able to keep Mom in this timeline, at some point, Mom's timeline is going to recover her because the gravitational instability is too great. But that whole problem is a non-problem because as this episode goes along, we don't need to fix that problem. That problem actually becomes a bit of a help to the situation later on. Now we go back to section 31, and we get to see Leeland wants to data and orders Vox Tyler, and the Empress is also there as they talk about the need to recover the data. That section 31 must recover that data because we can't trust normal Starfleet with this data that quote unquote could lead to the creation of control and the all creating AI that's going to destroy all of mankind. And the Empress is a little bit skeptical, but Vox Tyler, being the clueless Bambi stuck in the headlights as his character plays, is like, yeah, okay, whatever you say, I'll do it. But Empress Leeland is not so easily, or Empress Giorgio is not so easily tricked, and she's a little skeptical about what's going on. Then we go back down to talking with Mom, and we find out that Mom put the sphere in the Discovery's path. That was something that Mom did because the sphere has this data that section 31's control utilized to basically cause all of this problem. And one of the ways in which she tried to fight control from being able to get hold of this data was basically to change the course of life for the sphere itself, and managed to somehow detach the sphere from its orbit or its anchor, and somehow managed to put the sphere into the path of the Enterprise in hopes that are in path of the Discovery, in hope that if the Discovery would have the data, then it wouldn't make its way into the hands of Control, and that's how she's going about trying to keep the big bad alien in the future from getting the data. Then we get a little bit back on the bridge. We find out that Mom wants to talk to Captain Pike, and only Captain Pike. No Michael Burnham, just Captain Pike. And Michael Burnham throws a hissy fit. What do you mean I can't go talk to my mom? Why can you only go, Mr. Pike, or Captain Pike? This is not fair. Wah, 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 stomp my feet, stamp my feet. I'm the only one that could possibly know how to fix this situation. How dare my mom only want to talk to the captain, blah, 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 blah. So Pike goes and has a talk with Mom. At the same time that Burnham was finding out about the hissy fit, Burnham looks over at Spock during the briefing and is like this look to Spock that I need your help, Spock. We need to disobey these orders. You must help me somehow. Mutiny. I must go talk to my mom. Help me. And so there's this pointless eye contact that happens at the end of the debriefing, as if Burnham's trying to call out to Spock for help to get her way. So Pike goes down and talks to Mom and discovers that Mom doesn't know anything about the signals. It doesn't matter to her. Her mission has nothing to do with 7 signals that opened up simultaneously. Her mission is completely to stop the sphere data from getting into the hands of Control. That's the only thing that's on Mom's mind, is to save the universe from the AI that takes over and destroys all of mankind. And these 7 signals matter not to her. They are of no relevance in her mission. So then Mom basically explains to Captain Pike that all that sphere data that they collected, that those trillions or quadrillions, or I don't know how big of a number it was, but it was like 160,000 years of some sentient thing collecting data on everything in the universe. I mean, it was an astronomical amount of information, and basically, Captain Pike is told by Mom that it's all got to be deleted because we can't risk it falling into the hands of the AI, because the AI will use it to basically destroy all of mankind, and that the only thing we can do with this entire with all this data of this culture is to delete it. In which case, we see Saru vehemently voice his objection about, we can't just delete this data. It's craziness. And we're reminded back to earlier in the episode when Control spoke about being Saru at some point, and we're left a little wondering, wait, is Control still Saru? What's going on here? So we're a little skeptical at this point in the conversation, where Saru's fighting for the data's lack of being deleted, if you will. Then Saru attempts to delete the data, but the data's not able to be deleted because evidently it starts putting up all these firewalls. And we notice that Mr. Vox Tyler, who's been sent on a mission by Control, Captain Leeland, who he doesn't really know is Control, but Vox Tyler is just going to do what he's told to do. He's holding some sort of device, and the device is keeping the Discovery from being able to delete the files, or at least we think so. Or is Saru keeping the files from being deleted? One of the two is, but we're pretty sure it's Vox Tyler, because he's the one cupping a special device in his palm that the camera highlights. Then we discover that Spock was the only person that could possibly help Mom in her time traveling issues, and that's why Mom reached out to communicate with Spock, because Spock is unique in his logic and his dyslexia. Yes, dyslexia is what has made Spock so special, that he's the only person that could possibly be reached out to because of his logic and his dyslexic nature. Yes, dyslexia made him special. That was the moral of this episode, is Spock is special. Anyway, moving along, Pike eventually gives in to Burnham and allows Captain Burnham, might as well call her Captain Burnham because she always gets her way no matter what, to go down to the planet and interrogate her mother. And on her way, Spock, of course, pointlessly quotes Hamlet to signify that this is some momentous part of the storyline. Yay, Spock, quoting Hamlet. Well, Burnham goes down and gets a long, cynical time lecture from Mom, basically explaining how time is a real horrible thing, and there's nothing nice about it, and don't expect her to cry for Burnham, and it doesn't matter, because the only thing that matters is the mission and saving time, and she doesn't want to hear she doesn't want to get close to her daughter, because she is distancing herself from her daughter for the good of the mission. And she does this by basically giving a very cynical lecture about time. And basically explains that the bigger picture is all that matters and nothing else. Then we cut to commercial break, but when we come back from commercial break, we get a wonderful picture of Stamets upside down. And then the picture slowly turns 180 degrees, and we put Stamets back into the upright, non-upside down position, and we continue with Star Trek Discovery. What was the purpose of the stupid upside down camera trick? It had no real purpose at all. It was frankly stupid. Like so much of the special effects in this show, so much of the lens flares, the shadowing, the over the top stupid special effects that they're spending lots of money on, but not investing in what matters, which is the development of the characters, writing a decent story. But no, we have to have an upside down Stamets for absolutely pointless reasons. I'm still baffled. I don't understand the significance of upside down Stamets. If anyone can explain the significance of having an upside down Stamets after commercial break, please leave it down in the comments section below. I would love to hear about the significance of an upside down Stamets. Stupidity. That's all it was stupidity. Then we get into some of the science of Star Trek. Yes, this was an episode of Star Trek Discovery that stood on its science. It was one of the best scientific Star Trek discoveries that we've had in 2 seasons, because we're going to use dark matter to power our transporters in order to beam Dr. Burnham into our space-time. And Spock makes some stupid comment after this about to the effect of he likes science, and that's supposed to tell everybody in the audience that this is scientifically Spock approved, and all of these stupid scientific terms that we just threw out into a mesh of stupidity is just to be accepted because Spock approves it, and it's good science. Just go along with it. What? Now we go back over to see Control having another conversation with the Empress. And Control knows that the Empress is a little skeptical, but Control is sure that if he plays to the Empress's evil side, right, you know, gives Giorgio, Terran, evil Giorgio, the things that she wants, that she can, that Control can bend Giorgio to do what he needs Empress Giorgio to do. I mean, because a Terran Empress Giorgio is such a trusting thing that a logical computer would put its faith in. Has Empress Giorgio ever done anything that seemed even remotely coherent or had any type of pattern that was predictable? This is the most unpredictable woman in this show that seems to behave with no rhyme nor reason, but yet this almighty Control is going to put this valuable mission into the hands of a complete wild card. For some reason, that just doesn't seem like something an overly smart artificial intelligence would do. But that's just me. Then we begin. Empress Giorgio goes down and starts uploading the data, and we're kind of scratching our head like, well, she's going through with it. She's uploading the data. Maybe he did get through to her evil side. Then we see some heartbreaking exchange between Burnham and her mother, and how Burnham is explaining to her mom that she doesn't want to lose her again, and that they have a plan. They have a plan to beam her out of into their space time, and basically let the suit go back to before their, to a time before technology, and so that all of this data would be lost and unable for the AI to get its paws on. But Mom's not impressed. Mom's like, no, we can't be sure it'll work. I'm not there. I won't be able to know its work, which just upsets Burnham because, again, Burnham's not getting her way, and now Burnham has to throw a hissy fit. And then we get a little bit of moment where Mom talks to Giorgio and is like, promise me one thing. Promise me you'll protect my daughter. You'll take care of my daughter. You will take care of Mikey Spock and ensure that she doesn't get herself into trouble because I'm not going to be here for her. I can only count on you, Empress Giorgio, to make sure that Burnham is going to be okay. And then all of a sudden we see a change of heart from the Empress as she then starts to communicate with Vox Tyler about the data transfer. And then she basically tells they stop the data transfer, and she has Vox Tyler go and confront Leeland. Going back to the conversation between Mom and Burnham, it eventually Mother breaks down and has the motherly moment where she basically tells Burnham everything Burnham wants to hear about how she was there for Burnham at every point in her life. She saw Burnham do everything, and she could not have been more proud of her precious daughter. Thus, reinforcing Burnham's reason for being, that her mother was there for her even when she had no idea that her mother was there for her, thus making Burnham feel all important and special. Because Burnham's not already captain of the universe and can do no wrong. We must force that point home even more. In which Burnham replies to Mom as, "Oh, Mom." You know, that just said it all. "Oh, Mom." Anyway, the data transfer gets stopped. Then Vox Tyler confronts Leeland. Vox Tyler realizes that Leeland is Control, and looks at Leeland while he is in a state of, I don't know, being re-put together molecularly by nanobots, and waits till the nanobots and stuff are all back together, and Control obviously comes to the realization that he's in the room, and then decides to draw his weapon, in which case it's too late, and Control basically stabs Vox Tyler. It looks like it could be a mortal wound, and we're feeling all sad or happy, depending on whether or not you're a big fan of the character of Vox Tyler. Some of us might have been like, "Woo, yeah, get rid of another useless character. Now, if we can only kill off Burnham and get rid of her for good, maybe this show could move forward in the proper direction." But hey, we had a couple of opportunities to see Burnham die. She's died twice so far this season, which has been kind of the highlights of the season, and now we get to an opportunity to see Vox Tyler maybe die. Hey, woohoo! A highlight of this episode. Anyway, Vox Tyler spills the beans about Leeland with his dying breath. He contacts the Discovery, and all he can manage to say is Leeland. But that's all that's needed to be said, because Captain Pike, he knows. Then Captain Pike starts to react, and Spock has important information that needs to be shared, and Pike's like, "Not now. We have a situation. We have to take care of the situation." And Spock's like, "You don't understand. We do have a situation. You need to know this." And so Spock interjects and explains that the Section 31 ship is downloading the data from the sphere. Uh-oh. Now down on the planet, Burnham gets her butt kicked by Leeland, who shows up down there to basically restart the data transfer. And, well, with Burnham being in trouble, somebody has to fulfill her obligation to protect Burnham. So the Empress, she jumps into battle, and she fights AI Leeland like she is a superhero, and manages to stand toe-to-toe with this AI Leeland for minutes. And during that time period, Stamets, Commander Nhan, and Burnham come up with a plan to destroy the dark matter thingies they were going to use to transport Mom out of the timeline. Instead, by destroying them, it would help to propel Mom and the Red Angel suit back to their anchor point, thus keeping Control from being able to get a hold of the suit, and possibly keeping Mom in the fight against the big bad guy, Control. So Mom and suit gets pulled back to the beginning of time. The fight happens. Empress manages to hold off Leeland long enough for needless plot devices to happen. Then they They beam everyone out. They bombard the planet with torpedoes. And of course, Leeland is able to escape just in the nick of time back to the Section 31 ship that Spock has already said, hey, it's been getting this download of data, and we're just going to let it get this download of data, and then we're just going to let it warp away. We're not going to disable it. We're not going to fire on it. We're not going to do anything with it. We're just going to allow it to escape, which is what has happened in this episode. But not before Vox Tyler escapes the ship in an escape pod, because Vox Tyler, with his dying breath, says Leeland, and then mysteriously makes it to an escape pod and manages to get off the Section 31 ship. Now it's the end of the episode. We see Burnham lying in her bed in pity mode. The world has ended. Life is over. But not so fast. Spock gives a bunch of pointless jargon in Star Trek Discovery Klingonese and somehow makes everything better, and it's symbolized by a game of chess. And so ends this episode of Star Trek Discovery. I don't even know what to say anymore about Star Trek Discovery. I don't know if I'm numb, if my mind has turned to jello, or what's going on. But up to the first commercial break, I asked myself if I liked what I saw, if I hated it, or if I liked it. And this was somewhere right up until the time when Mom demands to talk to Pike. I thought, I didn't dislike it, but I didn't exactly like it either. It wasn't the greatest sci-fi experience I'd ever seen in my life, and it wasn't as horrible as season 1 of Star Trek Discovery. It was meh, for lack of a better word. Then we come back from commercial break, and we see, Burnham throwing a horrible hissy fit. And I don't know, it seemed like the episode started to go a little bit downhill, but it never really descended into complete and utter horribleness as some other episodes of Star Trek Discovery have. Spock says some pointless jargon at the end that still, it didn't make Spock look bad. It didn't harm Spock's character. Spock had limited time on the screen, and so therefore they didn't really ruin Spock too much this episode. All in all, this episode didn't make me angry from the aspect of they're continuing to ruin Star Trek canon. If anything, it seems like they've avoided a lot of the things that tend to anger me about Star Trek Discovery in this episode. But at the same time, this episode wasn't great science fiction. It was meh. And that's really how I feel about this episode. It was meh. I mean, so it wasn't it wasn't the worst episode of Star Trek Discovery. And it certainly wasn't the best episode of Star Trek Discovery. It didn't it didn't make me want to grab something by the throat and start, shaken baby syndrome type thing. There was no fits of rage where I wanted to grab my monitor and start smashing it. It managed to avoid most of that. It's like being jabbed with a 1,000 really sharp, tiny needles every couple of seconds. You get hit with another one, another one, another one, another one, and they're not going really deep. Just kind of breaking the skin a little bit, just a slight tingly sensation, and after a while you realize that there's millions of these sticking out of you, and you're just kind of numb. That's what Star Trek Discovery has become. It's just kind of become numb. And so I don't know if I've become so numb that I can't say if this was good or bad. But I think that's how I feel. I feel that Star Trek Discovery has made me so numb, I can't logically say if this was a good or bad episode. My gut tells me that this was one of the better episodes of Star Trek Discovery, because there was nothing in it that screamed awful. It was kind of like last week's episode of Star Trek Discovery. Nothing in it really made me scream awful. But nothing in it made me say it was great either. It was. I think that's the best two words I could use to describe it. It was. And so I think this was very much on par with last week's Star Trek Discovery. But I considered last week's Star Trek Discovery to be above average for Star Trek Discovery, and therefore a success. But I seem to be one of the few reviewers that, I don't know, thought last week's Star Trek Discovery wasn't crap. And it makes me wonder, is my expectation bar for Star Trek Discovery a little bit higher on the crap expectation list? Am I willing to put up with a little bit more crap because it's Star Trek Discovery than I would a different show? I think that might be true. And I feel like this episode and the last episode, it somehow makes it within my expectation bar of Star Trek Discovery. And because it really didn't butcher anyone, it didn't ruin Spock, and it didn't make me want to throw my monitor out of a window, that I thought this was then a good episode of Star Trek Discovery, because I'm not left feeling like a vegetable. I never really said, I think I might have given it a 6 out of 10 last week's. And if this was, I don't know, that seems like a high rating, really, for last week's. Maybe 5 out of 10 would have been better. I'm finding it really hard to rate Star Trek Discovery these days. So I'm not going to rate it. I'm just going to say this episode was very similar in quality to last week's episode of Star Trek Discovery. And I think that's a fair and honest and reasonable assessment. It has been no great improvement over last week. It has flatlined. It has been meh. This was a meh episode. And for me, a meh episode of Star Trek Discovery is a success. Because most episodes of Star Trek Discovery are shit. And if you could somehow stay out of the shit rating, then that episode of Star Trek Discovery was a success because it wasn't down in the shit. And I don't feel that this episode was down in the shit. I felt it managed to somehow stay just over the top of the shit, like last week's episode did. And therefore, it's one of the better episodes of Star Trek Discovery. It's hard to say that this episode was a good episode of Star Trek Discovery because I think there's only ever been 2 episodes of Star Trek Discovery that could classify as being watchable. And that was the one Jonathan Frakes did. What was it? Season 2, Episode 3, and then Season 2, Episode 8 were watchable episodes. Those were good episodes. And these last 2 episodes, this Season 10, or Episode 10 and Episode 11, have like just been underneath that quality level. So above shit, but not as good as watchable. So is this like the 4th or 5th best Star Trek Discovery episode ever? Yeah, technically. But that doesn't make it very good. That's how I feel about this episode of Star Trek Discovery. Take it with a grain of salt because I don't even know how reliable my weights are anymore because I've got so much bias with this show. But that's where I am. That's how I feel about this episode of Star Trek Discovery. It certainly hasn't continued to, the last 2 episodes have not improved Star Trek Discovery. So Episode 8 was the final episode in the process of improving Star Trek Discovery in Season 2. Season 2 has had a lot of improvement, but at this point, after Season 2, Episode 8, 9 went downhill, 10 kind of just flatlined, and 11 is flatlined. So if you looked at this as like a bar graph, you would see a steady climb to Episode 8, a drop off at Episode 9, and then a flat line with Episodes 10 and 11. And that flat line is somewhere above being crap, but not high enough to be watchable. Anyway, I'm James Johnson. This is my channel. This has been my review of Star Trek Discovery. Please leave a like, subscribe if you're liking the content, and until next week, or until next time you watch one of my videos, peace.